Here we are in Ora Valley Ashram, here in the World Temple of Unity, and I'm here with Richard Barrett, who is one of the guest speakers here at the Peace Leadership Conference. And Richard, I just have to say, it's been a delight to meet you.
Thank you.
And you know, from last night when meeting you and you walking up and asking me, what makes you happy, to today hearing you speak in this conference. And we want to circle back to this, what makes you happy.
Sure.
But first I want to just start off, here we are in India, the land of the Bhagavad Gita, ancient history of yoga and the science of soul union with spirit, and the Bhagavad Gita with the battle between the soul and ego. And here we were, and you were talking with us today about peace and peace leadership and about soul essence and the ego. Could you just, I know this is a big topic because you spoke for quite a while today, just the essence of the soul and the ego and peace.
Well, you're right, it is a big topic, so I'll try and cut it into chunks if I can. And let me just say right at the very beginning, this is the first time that I've talked about this topic here in India, so what I was really surprised and pleased about was many of the Indian people who were here said, what you've done is, in a sense, taken the ancient Indian text and made them put them into a language that Europeans can fully understand. And I think that's true. I think it's a universal truth. I've been talking about universal truth, and that is the battle between the ego and the soul. But it's not actually so much a battle, because the ego is the construction of the soul, and the ego is constructed by the soul to act as a barrier, because the pain of being in three-dimensional material awareness is so great, especially as the soul begins to recognize that there is separation in this three-dimensional material world. The soul incarnates into the embryo, if you like. The reptilian mind-brain forms, becomes the dominant mind-brain, the soul becomes the subconscious, and that goes on for until about 18 months after birth. And during that time, the reptilian mind-brain may be struggling to maintain homeostasis because the mother may be drinking or the baby may not be wanted, but the fetus feels that, and the reptilian mind brain feels that. And what happens, the way our mind brains work, is that anything that we can't understand or anything that's too painful gets repressed to the subconscious. So right through that period, while the reptilian mind brain is dominant, any painful experiences get repressed to the soul, and the soul translates that as a lack of love, because it comes from a fourth dimension of consciousness where there is only love energy, basically. So that's painful. But when the idea of separation comes in and the baby begins to recognize it's not living in undifferentiated wholeness, wow, that becomes really hard for the soul. And the soul constructs this psychic identity called the ego, which acts as a buffer to this pain. And so ego is doing the job of guardian, but it forgets, because what the ego takes on and what the body-mind takes on is the soul's will to be present in three-dimensional material reality, and we call that the will to survive and the will to stay alive. And from that point on, it's a journey of the ego growing and developing, beginning to bond with the soul, relaxing its fears, and then soul awareness, self-actualization onwards. So that's the big story.
Yeah, it's what I really appreciate there. The soul is choosing to come incarnate into the three dimension, has that shock of separation, develops the ego, and yet the journey continues.
Yeah.
And you talked about the first 18 months, the survival, and then the next brain, you're talking about
the limbic mind brain.
Yes.
That becomes dominant. And so whereas the body, mind, brain is all focused on survival, physiological survival, it's geared up totally for that purpose. Now the limbic mind brain stage, we're living in a world of other people, parents and siblings, and so the whole focus now is safety. And that's what the limbic mind brain or emotional mind brain is focused on safety during that period. So here's another interesting thing. When, during that period, the ego finds it really unsafe, let's say the child is abused, it too creates a buffer. It's called the alter ego. And it may construct several of them, but the whole purpose is exactly the same as why the soul created the ego, to protect itself from the pain of what it's experiencing. Now, the amazing thing about the alter ego is that not only is it a different personality, but that different personality shows up with different medical conditions. So again, what happens is the pain of being in the world at that time with the limbic mind brain, emotional mind brain, when it gets too difficult, the pain, the energetic pain, is repressed to the body mind, and that's why the alter ego shows up with different body mind problems.
Okay, okay. And then the journey continues. The next brain, the neocortex, comes in, and you were saying this develops during adolescence, and that a lot of violence in the world is, you were saying a lot of the violence in the world is, a lot of that conflict comes around with young people because they're actually still developing the neocortex.
So throughout this whole period, the three mind brains are growing and developing. So the neocortex comes in as the dominant mind brain around 8 years old and goes on developing till we're about 24. And so, jokingly I say, if you've got a teenager, they've only got a half a brain because they do really silly things, and because they don't have the power of reflection that a fully developed neocortex would have, and fully developed reasoning. And so if the teenager, now, who is developing a worldview now, does not get its needs met during these early stages of development, it feels anger, it feels rebellious, and it will react against the cosmology, let me say, or the worldview of the parents, because it feels angry towards them, it's rebellious. And so what it will not do, it will either retrench into a deeper level of that cosmology, or it will step up to a new one. And so a lot of the radicalization that we see in the world amongst late teenagers and early adults is due to the fact they never got their needs met during this critical period. And at that period, what the needs are basically respect and recognition. They need to be seen for who they really are. And if they're not seen and appreciated by their parents, then that starts this anger, this rebellion, and the chance that they will move into a different cosmology or retrench into a deeper form of the parents' cosmology.
There's so many implications to everything you're describing. I mean, just the way you came up and greeted me, it's like, what makes you happy? And that was the way that you engaged me to have a connection.
Right.
And when I was, in this morning, you were talking about the ego, that sense of separation, the fear of death, and then the soul awareness is a sense of connectedness, a sense of openness, possibility. And so when you talk about peace leadership, you're really talking about a soul awakening process.
Absolutely. Because, as we've discussed at this conference, peace starts within. And if you've had, the first 24 years of your life not getting your needs met, there is not much peace within. And, you will go out and project your unmet needs onto other people. Right there, you've got violence. Right there, you have all of the things that we do not connect with peace, basically. So one of the most important things we can do is completely rejig our education system right from the very start, from kindergarten through to going to university or college, so that we teach kids how to be souls. What does that mean? how to be a soul. Well, the soul incarnates for 3 reasons. 1, self-expression, to fully manifest its gifts and talents. Secondly, connection. Third, contribution. Why those 3 things? Because that's the life of the soul in the 4th dimension of energetic awareness. It's trying to replicate the life that it has in 4th dimensional energetic awareness here in this 3-dimensional material world. So if you can teach kids how to do that, this sets them off. They've got an amazing advantage. By the time they get to 24 and start individuating, they know what individuating, which direction to go in, because they learned about it as kids.
And there's okay, so this idea of really creating opportunities for people at a very young age to self-actualize as a soul, so they can look at their unique soul expression to the world, connect with one another, and then contribute. And there's so many tools today. I mean, we're celebrating International Day of Yoga, with this interview, and we see yoga spreading around the world, different types of mindfulness meditation and so forth. Tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing in terms of the awakening around the planet, in terms of the different ways of soul awakening happening, and then this expression starting to manifest more and more.
Well, that's, again, a complex subject, but let me try and break it down into a couple of areas. I have this article that I've almost finished writing. It's called Beyond Spirituality. Okay. Yeah. And so it's a bit eye-catching because there are so many people who are following a very spiritual journey and a spiritual path, and I too have been. But I think what you have to recognize that spirituality serves a very unique purpose in terms of the moving through different worldviews. It serves the purpose of uniting people around values. So values and spirituality to go well together. And what it also does, it unites religions so that I can talk to you, because we're not going to be talking about beliefs anymore. Beliefs separate, values unite. So we talk around values, and we're able to come together in that worldview, that spiritual worldview, and have conversations and connect. But there's another level of integration that follows that, because we then move into soul consciousness. Now, to operate at soul consciousness, we have to unite science, spirituality, and psychology, because these are the big belief systems that control our lives. And the connection is in energy. This is where they meet. In science, it's the quantum energy field where we recognize, which meets the psychological, emotional field, So now we're talking about energy, and with spirituality is how I experience the divine inside. Again, energy. So as we move beyond spirituality into soul awareness, a whole new world opens up to us, because you begin to realize you don't have a soul. You are the soul. That is huge. If you think about it, ask people. I ask people, do you have a soul or are you a soul? And they usually put their hands up for both. And I say, well, you're pretty confused. Actually, becoming a soul and living as a soul has amazing benefits, because at the soul level, the soul can create whatever it wants in that energetic domain. And it shows up in your life before you even know you had a particular need. What you need shows up, because you're living from soul now. It's not, I have a soul, oh yes, let me introduce you to my soul, he's over here, he's gone away because I got angry kind of thing. No, you are the soul. So now, it's not that you create, it's just that things manifest for you, because at this higher dimension of consciousness, your soul is pulling everything together so that it can live the life that it wants to live. And the only way the way it does that is by moving the ego's fears out of the way.
This is beautiful. This is beautiful, because I've heard so many people talk about, okay, spirituality is an escapism from the harsh realities of the world. And you're talking about an initiation process the soul goes through with the ego, getting to the place of them being able to manifest. And there's something else that you've said that I just really appreciate. It's like, we have no needs. No. And yet the soul is able to then start manifesting. So I think this is a key distinction here. I've only heard one other person really talk about not having needs. Michael Singer talks about this quite a bit. So say a little bit about needs, ego, and soul.
Okay. So we all think we have needs, and we move through 7 stages of development, 7 levels of consciousness, and aligned with the 7 chakras. We know it's all about 7, right? Basically. So as you move through those first 3 stages, the surviving stage of the reptilian mind brain, it has a need, the need to survive, which is the soul's will to be present in 3-dimensional materiality. And every time it has difficulties doing that, it registers that in the energetic field as a fear. Energy. And then limbic mind brain, 2 to 6 or 7 years old, every time it feels unsafe, fear gets lodged into the body mind. And then as we move into the differentiating stage from about 8 to 24, that's the neocortex period, every time we want to feel secure in this larger world, not the parental world, the larger world. In order to feel secure, we have to have respect and recognition. We have to be acknowledged, right? And so if we don't get that, that's registered as fear. And now, by the time we're 24, boom, your personality is set for the rest of your life based on the fear-based beliefs when your 3 mind brains were growing and developing during this early period. And the rest of life is about undoing all of that. And so the next stage, individuating, is about releasing the fears. What that means is you've developed a personality in order to fit into the cultural framework of your existence. It's a mask. And you have to remove the mask in order to find out who you are. That is very difficult. You know, if you're brought up in the same community all of your life, you've never traveled, you never had education, these people never remove their masks. They stay at these first 3 levels of consciousness. If you have the opportunity to travel or get an education, you may begin to individuate and remove the mask to find out who you are underneath that. And what do you need? Freedom and autonomy. That's the need at that stage. Freedom and autonomy to be who you are. And as you begin to realize, wow, I don't agree with my parents, or I don't agree with that, and you begin to develop your own values. And then comes the moment of beginning of self-actualization. That was self-reflection. Now we come to self-awareness, and that's when start with the soul activation. And so from that moment on, you can blossom. You need to find out what it is that your soul came to do. What is it that brings passion and joy to your life? So the ego says, what's my meaning and purpose, and struggles around meaning and purpose. And the soul over here is going, wait a minute, I know my meaning and purpose, I just want to express. And so the trick when you're into your 40s or late 30s is to express what you want to express. Not to go around searching for meaning and purpose and looking here and there for meaning and purpose. Just be. Be who you really are. Find your full self-expression. And thereafter it comes to, once you have found it, you want to make a difference. And to make a difference, guess what? You have to connect. And that's why I focus so much on connection. That's why I ask you, what makes you happy? Because when you answer that question, I get to the very heart of who you are, and you feel seen. And it's not just the only question. You could say, what's alive in you today? Or what made you happy last week? Or what's the best thing that's happened to you in the last 6 months? So you connect like that at the soul level, and you feel seen. And that's all we want in life, is to be seen. We want to be seen by another soul. That's true connection.
And then thus the relationship between soul awareness and peace.
Exactly. So if I can get through all of this, I have no needs. I begin to realize that the need to survive, the need to, the fear is I don't have enough, and the next level is I'm not loved enough, and the next level is I'm not enough. If you can, that colors your thinking the rest of your life. So if you can undo the fears that you learned when you were growing up, you can find that peace inside to be peace in the world. And of course, whatever is going on inside is what we see outside is what's reflected outside of us. And so if you're not having such a peaceful life, well, guess what? It may not be your fault, but just take a look within and say, what do I need to release in order to find the love?
Yeah. And what words of encouragement do you offer to people who might be looking outside at the world, might be overwhelmed by what they're seeing going on in the political situation and feeling fear and so forth inside? What do you say?
Whatever you see going on outside, you can observe it, okay? You don't have to interpret it. You see, you don't have to give it your special meaning. You see, the way we give meaning to things is we give meaning based on whatever beliefs, subconscious beliefs we have about the needs that are important to us. And so, if you interpret what's going on inside through your beliefs, it's like a filter. So the way you interpret it is actually the way that you see the world. You can interpret what's going on in the world one way, I can interpret it another way. Because we have different lenses. So the most important thing is to recognize that your lenses are creating the reality that you're experiencing.
Okay. And what do you see as the possibility now with more and more people practicing yoga, mindfulness, and all these different self-awareness methods? So,
for me, that is part of the process of moving into soul consciousness. It is, but what you're experiencing during during yoga and mindfulness and meditation, you're experiencing states of consciousness, okay? You're not experiencing a stage of consciousness, right? So these are connections to whatever you consider to be divine, and they're great experiences, and you come out of them feeling really good. But you need to change as well, and that can be a gradual experience with yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. And so if you were to able, at the same time as to say, move into this, I have no needs, I recognize myself as a soul, I don't have a soul, those practices would accelerate that new level of awareness.
Okay, and you shared a practice, what you did 15, 20 years ago, about choosing to be connected.
Sure. So somehow I figured this out a long, long time ago, and I realized that the issues in the world all had to do with a feeling of separation. And so I said to me, I'm going to, well, first of all, I looked at myself and said, well, what am I? I ticked the boxes. I'm a male. Okay, so I'm going to express my female energy. Okay, I was born in the United Kingdom. Okay, I'm going to become a citizen of the planet. Okay, I was born into this religion, the Protestant religion. Okay, I'm going to be a member of all religions. I'm obviously a white person. Well, there are people, different colors, races. I'm going to be a soul having a human experience. So I embrace the feminine. I embraced the fact that I was a member of all religions. I embraced the fact that I was a citizen of the planet. And I embraced the fact that I was a soul. So now I'd completely re-identified myself. So no matter who I met in the world, there was no separation.
Beautiful.
And that enabled me then to connect. What makes you happy today? I can do that to the street cleaner, to the taxi driver, to anybody who I come across in my world, and it just opens up a relationship which may last forever. Actually, I spoke like this to the doorman of the hotel in Dubai, and I said, well, what makes you so happy? And he said, speaking to my mother. I said, where's your mother? She's in Pakistan, but every day I speak to my mother and she inspires me. I love my mother and makes me feel so good. I caught it all on tape. We became friends on Facebook, and so now we're friends for life.
Oh, that's beautiful, beautiful. Well, Richard, it's been such a joy to hear. I mean, clearly you're living from a place of soul purpose because you're so joyful. And what makes you happy?
What makes me happy? I tell you what makes me happy. more than anything, well, there are two things that make me happy more than anything. One is receiving, I call them downloads from my soul, which are in my writings. I'm writing a book a year. This year I'm writing 2 books. And unfortunately, my soul doesn't follow the 24-hour clock, so it shows up at 4 o'clock in the morning with all this material. I get up and I start writing every day at 4 o'clock. And I go to bed at night about 10, just praying for the moment when I'll wake up with all this new material. And the other thing that makes me happy is that I have a wonderful wife. And yes, having somebody to share your life with is really, really important, I think. And so truly, I feel that I lead a life with no needs.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Richard. Any final words for people listening here?
I think the final word for people would be your guru is inside. It's not out there in the world. It's inside that you need to find who you really are. And then, once you've found out who you are, identify. Identify. And so I have a final affirmation for people, and that is, this affirmation has changed my life. It's, I design my life the way my soul wants it. And that then became, I design my life, period.
Beautiful. Well, Richard, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yes. Namaste.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re So